Well, hello and welcome. I am so delighted to be here today. Thank you so much for coming in and watching me live. And if you're watching this back, that is okay. I hope to be able to pour into you as well. Today, we're going to be doing a deep dive into the importance of self-care as well as burnout prevention. I'm Leslie Gadet. I'm a self-care strategist for female CEOs and their teams, and I provide my clients with self-care strategies for them to prevent burnout and enhance their quality of life both in their business and beyond in their personal life. First and foremost, I want you to feel comfortable asking questions and for this to be an environment where we can openly discuss our experiences, challenges, and aspirations. This workshop has been designed to be a supportive space, allowing us to learn from one another and grow together. The main objective for today's sessions is twofold. One is to understand the significance of self-care in our lives, particularly for those in high-stress roles like yourselves in the service-based industry. And two, to gain valuable insights into the 4 stages of burnout and how to recognize and prevent them. So first of all, self-care is not a luxury, it's a necessity, and I know that you know this, especially when you're dedicating so much of your time to serve others. By prioritizing our own well being, we not only enhance our personal lives, but we also elevate the quality of our work and our impact. And so, together, we're going to explore effective strategies to nurture resilience and maintain a healthy balance between our professional commitments and our self care practices. I really, truly want you to be able to walk away with some things that you can actually start implementing in your day to day. Throughout this workshop, we're going to engage in I wanted to engage in interactive discussions, but that's okay. I'm going to ask the questions and you can go back and watch this again at that particular point and write them down. I can even send the questions to Kavita and have her make sure that they're a part of the YouTube show notes so that you can pull them out and answer them. We're going to have some practical exercises as well for you. I encourage you to really go through these questions, actively participating for yourself, whether it's today after you watch the video or whether it's at a later date if you're watching this back, because this is going to really help you. It's going to help you to see where your challenges are and where your successes are. Because your experiences are going to be are invaluable. They are invaluable to you and collectively with your team, because even though you might all work in different departments, you're still part of a bigger collective, a bigger team. So we're going to go on this path together, supporting one another, discovering the power of self-care to nurture your resilience and help you prevent burnout. So again, thank you for joining me today. So let's get started. First things first, the term burnout was coined in the 70s by American psychologist Herbert Freudenberger. He used it to describe the consequences of severe stress. He, along with psychologist Gail North, developed what they call the 12 stages of burnout that they believe affect many working professionals today, especially those who believe in adopting the work harder model. I don't know if you've heard of the work harder model, but a lot of people think that if you work hard, you're going to see results. To me, I feel like it's work smarter to see the results, because your time is so precious. So they're trying to prove themselves at the expense of their physical and emotional well-being. And today we're going to cover 4 stages of burnout, which framework is a simplified version of the original model created around the 12 stages. And this model of the 4 stages was later adopted by other authors and researchers. I'll also provide you with real stories shared by women I have personally interviewed. I will change their names for privacy's sake, but what they experienced and how they overcame burnout is extraordinary. Some of the stories of the women that I have spoken with. I'm only going to share a few with you, but I have spoken with several. And there will be, as I said, I was originally going to have times for us to stop and reflect and share, but what I will do is just make sure that I provide that information so that you can do this on your own time. There will not be any slides. I feel that slides can be a distraction, and I really want us to be present and not reading and being distracted by other things. So I hope if you have a pen and paper, that you can write down any questions that come up for you. Then we can address them at the end. Okay. So the 4 stages of burnout that we're going to cover are: stage 1 is the honeymoon phase, stage 2 is onset of stress, stage 3 is chronic stress and burnout, and finally stage 4 is crisis and burnout syndrome. I thought I saw a message, so I just was pausing for a second. So let's get started and go through each of these stages, beginning with stage 1, which is the honeymoon phase. So this may not apply to you, but it might outside in your personal life. It might not in your professional life, because you do have a specific um, description of what you do for your job, but it could actually apply outside of your life. So if you are going after goals outside in your personal life, this could apply. Meaning, this is the honeymoon phase is where you're in that excitement mode, like you're energized. You've got something new that you're going after. You're enthusiastic. You're passionate about it. But during this phase, we might have that surge of motivation and creativity and a drive to achieve our goals. But it's so crucial at this beginning stage to recognize that the honeymoon phase also carries potential risks, because we may become so engrossed in what we're doing that we'll lose sight of our own well being. We might ignore signs of stress, fatigue, or overextend ourselves, leading to overwhelm, which can gradually lead to the next stage of burnout. And when I say that we might ignore the signs, it's because we're excited, right? We're doing something that lights us up, we're passionate about, and we think, oh, I have the energy, I can do this. But if you continuously do that, for example, let's say you do that for 2 weeks straight, you might then start to feel the effects of it and move into the next stage of burnout. But before we do that, as I said, I recently conducted market research with some women. I spoke with a few in business, asking them to reflect on their experiences with burnout and the impact that it had on their lives. So as I said, I'd like to share some of these stories that I gathered from those who graciously shared with me. These real life experiences can shed light on the signs and coping strategies, consequences, and lessons that were learned from the brink of burnout. And as I said, I'm going to change their names for the sake of privacy. So first, I'm going to introduce you to Bonnie. Bonnie described a time when she felt overwhelmed and on the brink of burnout. She mentioned experiencing signs and symptoms such as constant panic, inability to focus, and worries about unfinished tasks. Her experience reflects the intensity and toll that burnout can have on our well-being. She also shared how she coped with the pressures and demands of her work during that time. Initially, she wasn't practicing self-care at all, which contributed to the problem. She wasn't taking care of herself. However, she did recognize that she needed to stop and prioritize her well being. So she started implementing practices such as having quiet time in the morning, listening to some inspiring music, learning techniques to deal with anxiety, and she started spending more time in nature. These practices that she implemented in her life helped her regain her balance and resilience. She also said that she struggled to function beyond a basic level when she was neglecting her personal care and her well being. And she felt a decreased motivation for daily activities. But despite her determination to keep going, her team noticed this and they provided support. That's why, I believe community is everything. For me, especially, you work in a large organization, and even though you work in different departments, you're still part of a family, a team that can share experiences, can support each other when you're going through things. So Bonnie, when she wanted to recover from burnout and prevent it from happening again, she made changes in her approach to self-care, emphasizing starting the day mindfully with quiet time and relax and meditation. She also mentioned to me that she was using techniques to center herself throughout her day, drawing from Shirzad Shamin's work on positive intelligence, which I'm going to introduce a little bit later. I love his work. It has been a game changer for me and some of the things in my practice, and adding to my toolkit. Bonnie also acknowledged that these strategies require consistent practice, of course, just like anything, and ongoing commitment to prioritize her health and well-being. She was able to highlight for me that her health had to become a top priority. And now because she realized this, she no longer feels guilty about taking time for herself, recognizing it as critical. It's an investment in herself. It's so important. And her experience with burnout influenced her approach to self care and her work life harmony, shaping her understanding of the need for self care as a foundation for overall well being. So, as you know, as I said, I wanted to stop for reflection, but just think about this for a moment. Reflecting on your own experiences, maybe, as I said, it might not be in the work environment based on what you do, but it could be your personal life. Think about times when you were highly engaged, passionate, and driven in your endeavors, like in your projects, the things that you were going after, your goals. And learn to maybe recognizing that maybe there were signs of hyper engagement and instances where you may have overextended yourself. I know that I could probably say with pretty much clarity and conviction that everyone has a burnout story. We just don't realize that we have one. So that's one of the first places where I would want you to start reflecting on is maybe there's a moment in your life that you can remember, that you can think about, that could possibly have been you in a honeymoon phase and not recognizing that you were there. So let's move on to the next phase. Let me just check to see if there was anything anyone wanted to say. Okay, no, great, here we go. So the second stage, as I was saying, if you continuously move through the first stage of the honeymoon phase and you are full on going, not taking the breaks, not making sure that you're taking care of you, you could end up winding up in the next stage, which is onset of stress. So this is where we transition from the initial honeymoon phase into a period where challenges and stressors start to make their presence felt. It's important that we learn to recognize the signs and symptoms of this stage because they can be early indicators of potential burnout. So, this is something that you might be able to relate to. You may experience feelings of tiredness, dissatisfaction, and a decrease in productivity. You might find it more challenging to focus on tasks, and physical fatigue can set in, making it difficult to maintain a healthy work life harmony, right? I use the word harmony because a lot of people don't like the word balance. But I feel I'm going to give you an explanation about that, how what I mean by that. But it's extremely important to be mindful of the early warning signs so that you can take proactive steps to manage stress effectively. So as I said, before I continue, I just want to give you my explanation of what I believe work-life balance looks like for me and how I approach it with my clients. So traditionally, most people think that there's a balanced scale on how much time you spend at work and how much time you spend on life. The way I look at work-life balance is this: it's having clarity in your daily tasks. So in your work, if you go to a job and you have specific hours and you have specific tasks, so you have a schedule, it's having clarity around that, where your time is spent. And then maybe having a weekly schedule where you've designated days for specific tasks. So maybe you have a structured environment where one day is you are doing paperwork, another day is more patient related or client related. Maybe there's going to be time for learning, and hopefully that will become more of a mainstream for your business environment with your leaders when they see that learning is really important. Maybe and just these are just a name a few things, but so that you're not doing everything on every single day and feeling like you're not really doing anything at all. Or finding yourself at the end of your day wondering what, if anything, did you accomplish? Now, I know, again, it's different for each of you because you all work in different environments and different departments. Some of you may have more paperwork than others. Some may be on the floor more than others. Some may be watching monitors longer than others. But whatever that looks like, it's actually having an idea of what you really are spending your time on. Because I've heard this said many times over, I don't have the time. I don't have the time. And I think what happens is we get so caught up in the things that we're stressed about. We feel like that is robbing us of all of our time. When actually, if we look at our calendar and we use our calendar as our friend, that it can actually show us where we're spending our time, what we're spending our time on, and then allow us to see, oh, okay, this day is heavier than this day. Do, do I have the option of maybe moving some things around, if possible? And being able to then look at that as saying, okay, I can now use my calendar more effectively, which will give me a little bit more time freedom. But again, you might have different things that just are an everyday thing, a part of your job description. And so what does that look like? Again, also making sure, this is something that is really important, is making sure that you have time on your calendar for you. Okay, so if that means a time where you are going after work or during your break, you're getting outside, you're just spending time with you, with yourself. And the reason why I say to do this is because I want you to be able to bring yourself back to the present, just within yourself. Letting the outside noise slip away and allowing yourself to just be present in the moment where you are, and that allows you to calm yourself. So again, when you have clarity on the things that you do, it really depends on the type of position that you hold. It helps you to effectively plan out and manage your time around your business goals or your business tasks, so you can use your time efficiently, getting more done instead of being stuck in busy work or being stuck doing everything, making more days heavier than they need to be. When if you're able to, being able to stretch things out. And if that means that you're on the floor every day, maybe it's the paperwork. How do you maybe find a way that you're able uh, to really have structure in place where, okay, if I'm seeing this person and I can write these notes out, how can I make it easier for me so that it's not me scrambling at the end to write up a report? That's what I mean. So, and that leads me to your personal life. When you have clarity and use your time productively at work, it's going to free you up to schedule a little bit more time for your personal life, where you can go all in without feeling resentful, thinking you have to be working. Again, it's really important to shift the mindset from my job is draining me, to how can I use this as an opportunity to pour into myself, get my energy back, take care of me, so that uh I'm not thinking about work when I leave work, so that when I go home, I'm all in, and I can get to that place where I don't feel guilty when I'm not working, thinking I should be, spending time with loved ones, but I'm working on paperwork at home because I didn't get to it during the day. It really does come down to management. It truly does. And if you're able to find a way to do that, I really, really encourage you to. So now let's talk about burnout story number 2. Her name is Sally. She's another woman that I connected with during my market research, and she shared her personal journey with me through burnout. And she described a time when she felt overwhelmed and on the brink of burnout. She was at the peak of her career, burdened with numerous responsibilities that caused her to dread going to a job she once loved. She experienced depleted energy levels, declining performance, and even developed anxiety that became increasingly difficult to manage. Her journey highlights the toll that burnout can take on both our professional and personal lives. So during that challenging period, Sally found herself going through the motions, doing just enough to get by, you know, especially I'll give you an example, going to work and you're just there, you're just going through the motions and you're just doing what you can to get by. She didn't have any self-care in place, no strategies in place. That further exacerbated her burnout. And the consequences and the impacts of her burnout were significant because she started missing her deadlines. Her work quality suffered, and her negative attitude affected her team. She said her burnout unknowingly seeped into every aspect of her life, impacting both her work and home environments in a negative way. And this made her realize that addressing her burnout and seeking balance was extremely crucial for her well-being. So to recover, she made important changes. So she was a single mom, and she knew she needed the income from her job. She realized she couldn't quit. What she did was she proactively found something that she could do, what she was in her control, was she attended a workshop for women with anxiety, and where she learned how to meditate. And this became an essential self-care practice for her. She also reintroduced running. She indulged in long baths. Self-care can be a whole bunch of different things that you can do for yourself, whether it's even just going and having your tea in the afternoon by yourself, 5 minutes, no interruptions, just relaxing, savoring the moment. So, and she treated herself to weekly facials as a way to prioritize her well being. She celebrated herself. She learned to put herself at the top of her list. They not only improved her performance, these strategies that she put in place, but they cleared her mind, allowing her to develop an exit plan for what she was doing and reassess her priorities. Her experience around burnout taught her that having that exit plan was important. She also recognized that, especially when she was trying to transition to something else, she recognized the necessity for mandatory breaks. So, really taking time during those breaks, first of all, making sure she had the breaks, and then using those breaks to get away from everything. That meant getting away from her phone, not scrolling social media, not getting watching, not going through emails, not answering text messages or listening to voicemails. It was actually just taking a break from everything. Regardless of how demanding her schedule or life may be, she said, I needed to do these things. And she said what that did was it opened up a whole new world of work-life balance. This is what she said that she'd never experienced before. And now it's part of her routine. She understands the crucial role it plays in maintaining her overall well-being. So now I want to move on to coping strategies because this is really important. We've now entered the onset of stress stage, right? Where the initial enthusiasm starts to wane, challenges and stressors become more prevalent. It's a critical phase to explore effective coping strategies that can help us manage stress and maintain balance. So this is another place where I am going to make sure that I give to Kavita some of these things that to remind as reminders for what you can do. This is a place where you can start to reflect on to see if you can recall a time when you felt overwhelmed and on the brink of burnout. Maybe you were overwhelmed and feeling panicky, but you didn't realize that that was a sign of burnout. Maybe you were feeling tired and you were disinterested in things. You were maybe not as excited to do things as you once were before, and these could all be signs of burnout. Because I had a friend recently tell me all of these signs. She said she'd been working on a project, she'd been going for 2 weeks straight. She was feeling tired. She didn't know why she woke up not wanting to do anything. She felt really she just felt like she was no longer interested in the goal itself. And I said to her, it sounds like you're traveling down the path to burnout. And we started looking back at what she was doing, and she realized that she wasn't taking care of herself with those breaks. So, it's really, and I'm not really, also, she wasn't taking care to recognize that maybe she was becoming overwhelmed because she started looking at her calendar and realized that there was really no time on her calendar for herself. So one of the questions that I'll ask you is, can you recall a time when you felt overwhelmed and on the brink of burnout? Because as I said, I believe we all have a burnout story. We just don't recognize it. We don't realize that it's a burnout story. Like, what were the signs and symptoms you experienced? And then you're able to write those down. I'll give you an idea of like what one of my very first, I believe when one of my very first experiences with burnout, I did not recognize it as burnout because I didn't know that about this. And I was working as a new legal assistant, and self-development was not really on the radar for me way back when, a few years ago. And I was working for a very busy lawyer in Toronto. I grew up in Canada, and he had 6 of us assistants. I was in charge of one department, creating all of the loan. I was in charge of the loan division, so I was doing refis, new mortgages, for residential homes. And I had between 50 and 60 closings per month. And not only was I preparing all the paperwork in the beginning and at the end, but I was also closing all of these loans with the clients, meeting with all the prospective clients. And so what that was doing to me was I was constantly on the go. I also was working part-time for a psychologist who was renting space in the building. Uh, my employer at the time owned the building, and he had rented out space. And one of the tenants was a psychologist, and so I started typing up his transcriptions from his client meetings. And I would take work home with me. And I felt like, oh, I'm in my 20s. I'm like, this is great. Nothing wrong with me. I have all this energy. And I would get up really super early in the morning. I would go into work super early. I would walk about 3 kilometers to work. And no, I think about 2 kilometers to work. I loved it because it got me outside, and it was just nice in the morning. And I got to work early. I would start early before the phones would ring. And I did that for 4.5 years. And then all of a sudden, I had a panic attack at the office. And one of my friends, who I'm still friends with today, we worked together. She came to my aid and she took me outside and she said, "Okay, are you okay? Let's just move to a different location and to calm me down." And I didn't even recognize like what was going on. I just started to panic. Afterwards, my body started to physically manifest how I was feeling. I developed hives from air conditioning. If I would go outside, I grew up in the seasons, so it was quite odd for me to start developing hives. My entire body would break out. And then I developed lactose intolerance. And all of these things was my body telling me these were signs, but these were signs that I could have avoided, but because I kept going and I didn't know any better, that these things my body was just saying, it was pushing back and telling me, you have to slow down. And so I ended up, um, I did leave working for the lawyer for about 3 weeks. And then I came back to work for him, worked another 3 years, and then I ended up moving on to another job, and which had less stress. But really, I didn't even know that I was having a burnout moment because that was never anything that was talked about. I really feel like these things were never really mainstream when I was, going through my first foray into corporate, my first legal job, my first job in legal, I should say, as a legal assistant. And so that was really, a wake up call for me. I started to make changes, but I didn't understand that. Now looking back, of course, hindsight is 2020, right? I was able to look back and say, oh, yes, I understand. That's my first burnout story. I've had more. I've had several, but that was my very first one when I started reflecting back. So now let's move on to stage 3. And I feel like for me, it was onset of stress. I was on the verge, I believe, really at close to chronic stress and burnout, but I wasn't there yet. I would eventually get to this stage, but I hadn't. My first original experience was the onset of stress. I made it there with all of the physical things of my body starting to really to manifest. Not only was I feeling a certain way, but my body started to manifest it. And that was when finally I made changes without realizing the why behind it. Okay, so the stage 3 is chronic stress and burnout. This stage is characterized by a significant decline in physical and emotional well-being, marked by emotional exhaustion and detachment. It's important to understand the challenges and symptoms associated with this stage because it can have a profound impact on your overall health and well-being and your functioning. Um, we won't have an activity for this stage. As I said, I typically have activities throughout my workshops, but I encourage you to reflect on your own experiences and consider the effects of chronic stress and burnout on your well-being. Because again, you may have had emotional exhaustion. You may have felt detached. You may have felt things were, you wanted to detach from things during challenging times. You may have actually wanted to go home, turn off the phone or unplug the phone. You didn't want to have any interactions with anyone. You might have wanted to just go in your room, close the door, lay in your bed, and go to sleep. Recognizing chronic stress can affect not only your work, but also your personal life and your relationships, right? Because this is important when you start moving along the chain of these and you start getting worse and worse and worse, it's going to be noticed by other people. So to support you, I want to introduce you to a self-care action planning process. I'm going to provide this to Kavita. It's an action planning worksheet for you that you can do in your own time. And it's a tool that's going to guide you in creating a personalized self-care plan that addresses specific challenges and symptoms associated with chronic stress and burnout. I've tailored it for you specifically. I also want to let you know that if you want a more personalized approach and guidance to create it, you can let me know, or you can let Kavita know and she can reach out to me. If you do choose to do it alone when you have a moment after our time together, make sure you take time to complete it, considering the self-care practices and strategies that resonate with you. Think about what nourishes and rejuvenates you on a physical, emotional, and mental level, and identify self-care goals and actionable steps that you can incorporate into your daily routine to counteract the effects of chronic stress and prevent burnout. And if you feel comfortable, I also encourage you to share your self-care goals and strategies with an accountability partner. If you have somebody that you work with that you guys lean on each other, you talk to each other, this actually can provide a supportive environment for accountability and collaboration as you go on your self-care journey. I think, again, I always believe in community. I feel that we are better together when we uplift and encourage, when we encourage, when we inspire, when we uplift and we support each other. I feel that we are so much better together. Self-care also is personal, it's ongoing, and the action plan that I'll provide can serve as a guide to prioritizing you. And when you fill it out, make sure you take the opportunity to reflect on self-care that resonates with you. It's not a one-size-fits-all model. So I want you to know that right from the get-go. Your lifestyle individually, I'm talking to each of you, but your individual lifestyle is not going to be the same as your work colleagues or your friends or even your family members. It's going to have to align with what works for you and what you like to do, so that you can incorporate them into your daily life, because habits, in order for them to form, you have to start somewhere. And if you don't like something, you're not going to continuously pursue it. I've been meditating now for almost 7 years, but I didn't do that before. I thought meditation was crazy, but I started out with small meditations, guided meditations. I started incorporating that into my life. I do it every day now without fail. It's just part of my lifestyle because it became a habit. It was something that I learned to enjoy. So remember that your well-being, it really truly matters. And when you actively practice self-care, you cultivate resilience and you navigate your challenges of chronic stress and burnout more effectively, especially if you find yourself headed that way. So now I want to share burnout story number 3, Laura. Laura shared with me her experience of feeling overwhelmed and on the brink of burnout when she owned her cafe. Fearing failure and wanting to prove herself, she pushed herself to the limit, neglecting her well-being in the process. The signs and symptoms she experienced included anger, frustration, exhaustion. She cried a lot, and an uncontrollable need for sleep. During that time, she coped by plowing through her pressures and demands of her work. She believed that it would be worth it in the end, but she didn't prioritize self care or have any strategies in place. In fact, she sacrificed sleep and free time to keep up with the demands. I don't know if you know anyone personally who has a business outside of like what you do, but has their own business. This is really important because when you get into that place where you think, oh, when I have this, when I do this, this is going to happen. I'm going to have all the freedom. A lot of people want time freedom and they think money is going to bring the time freedom. It's not, that's not what brings you time freedom. It's having clarity around what you do daily and having using your calendar wisely, structuring what you do, having a goal vision of the bigger picture, breaking it into actionable steps month by month, week by week, day by day, and you have that structure so that when you have week one and you have you have the 52nd week, but you're in week one, you're not going to be looking at what's down the road. You're going to be looking at what's here right now. That's going to help you to stay working on the things that are right now. It has you in alignment with what you're doing right now. You're not looking down the road. And I think that's what happens with us as entrepreneurs or people who go out and start their own business is that we get so caught up in the bigger vision that we start, doing so much. So as I was saying, if you're doing something outside of what you do now in your personal life, make sure that if you have a big goal, that you really look at bigger goal and then structure it in a way so that you have micro steps along the way. If it takes you a while to get there, that's okay. Because for me, I think timing is far more important than how long it takes for you to reach a goal. You may need longer than someone else, and that's okay. Give yourself permission to live your life for you. Okay. So again, she sacrificed her sleep time, her free time to keep up with her demands, and the consequences were significant for her because she ended up in the hospital with kidney stones and was forced to close her cafe down temporarily due to a lack of coverage. It made her feel like a failure and caused financial loss. This can happen with burnout because you're now at that place where you're starting to feel the effects and you're being forced. Now, in your industry, imagine if you get to this place where it's chronic stress and burnout and you are forced to take time off. And maybe you can't. Maybe you can't afford to. Maybe it's not in your budget to do so. This is important to understand. Being aware of right back stage one, the honeymoon stage. In other words, in that phase, this is where you structure your time while making sure you put in those self-care moments for you, using your breaks wisely to take care of you so that you don't feel overwhelmed and go down the path to burnout where you get to this stage and you're forced to take time off. So to recover from burnout, Laura implemented changes. She made it a priority to never work without relaxation, and she started prioritizing what she calls her me time and her health. She started meditating, she had a gratitude practice, she did visualization for her mindset, and she also scheduled self care activities like pedicures and massages. Now, self care for me is not just the what I call soft self care, like the massages and the mani pedis and buying yourself something nice and having a nice lunch out or a fancy lunch out or going on a trip. Those are all celebrations and I call them soft self-care, but there's essentials of self-care like learning to say no. So in other words, you're protecting your time, so you're saying yes to the right things, asking for help, not trying to do it all alone, feeling like you're all alone on an island and you can't ask anyone for help, but actually that's a sign of strength when you do. And actually taking those mental breaks. Those are my top three. I have several more, but those are my top three. Taking mental breaks, again, using your breaks wisely so that you are allowing your brain to like reset, and so that you're able to then go on and get back to more focus once you're ready. she told me that she realized she didn't have to be a one woman show anymore and that it was okay for her to ask for help. She gained the courage to step back, acknowledging actually that she didn't have time. She didn't have to have everything figured out or to be perfect all the time. You know, this can fall under perfectionism. Most importantly, the experience made her recognize that her health is everything, and without it, true success cannot be achieved. So now we're going to talk about stage 4, crisis and burnout syndrome. So this, if you reach this point, you will have reached your limit and you'll no longer be able to function as you normally would. It's a critical stage where burnout will have escalated to an overwhelming level, significantly impacting your physical, mental, and emotional well-being. And the weight of work-related problems will consume you, leading to obsession and extreme self-doubt. This has happened to someone that I spoke with. So during crisis and burnout, the consequences become even more pronounced. You may experience intense physical symptoms such as chronic headaches, gastrointestinal issues, overall fatigue. The toll on your mental health becomes severe with feelings of hopelessness, emptiness, and disconnection. It can permeate every aspect of your life, affecting your relationships, your personal fulfillment, and your professional performance. Your job performance could be affected by this. So it's really crucial for you to recognize the severity of this stage, really pay attention here, and the urgent need for intervention. Um, I don't want you to get here, but if you find you know someone who's gotten to this stage, pay attention because you don't want to go down this road. So you want to make sure that you actually say, you know what, I actually know there's signs. I actually can see what I'm doing, that I can actually ask for help. How can I do that? So you want to make sure you seek support from trusted people, whether that is your friends, your family, maybe professionals, who maybe a therapist. Maybe that becomes essential. Making sure that you take steps to prioritize self-care, therapy, seeking medical advice if necessary is paramount in navigating this challenging phase. It's really important to pay attention to. I have to reiterate that. I encourage you to reflect on this because I have shared and I consider its relevance um, around the burnout stories that I've shared so far, that it's so important that you take to heart that even though I might have given you a small snippet of these women's stories, that there's so much more backstory to it. And imagine what the stages were that they could have avoided along the way. Again, awareness of the signs and symptoms of crisis and burnout syndrome is going to be the first step towards your recovery. But it doesn't mean it's going to happen overnight. And I also want you to remember you're not alone in the journey and that you can get that support to help you. So I have a friend that she's a teacher, and she told me that she ended up in this stage. She actually had 4 stages similar to crisis and burnout syndrome. uh, the first one was she took a 3 month leave of absence because she she, she just got to this place where it was push, 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 thinking that she had all of the things in place, that not recognizing that she really didn't have that energy, that she wasn't, because she wasn't taking care of herself. This is why it caught up to her. One of the other things I also want to note, and I know this is probably something that you can relate to, is that where she worked, it's common here in the US that they will reward teachers for working long, doing multitasking, doing more, working longer, to the point where they don't have time for themselves. So it's almost like they are encouraging to get to the stage of burnout without recognizing that they're doing that. So I'm not saying that they purposefully are saying, oh, do this because we want you to burn out. No, they were rewarding people, but I don't think they really realize what they were doing was really more harmful, because you are encouraging people to not take care of themselves. So before we move on to the last part of the workshop, I want to touch upon an additional stage of burnout, which is habitual burnout. This is where burnout becomes so deeply ingrained in our lives and can have severe consequences if left unaddressed. It's where it becomes a pattern. So remember, I told you about my friend just now, who's a teacher. or she was a teacher for 30 years. And she told me that she had 4 massive burnout uh, uh, experiences. So it can affect your behavior because it becomes a pattern. It affects your emotions and your overall well-being. And it's when you have that constant sense of emotional exhaustion, you feel constantly detached from your work. You experience chronic physical and mental fatigue, and you may even find it challenging to detach from work-related thoughts and worries. You're on all the time, even during non-working hours, and you struggle to find joy or satisfaction in your accomplishments. I found myself here before I finally took back my time. This is the stage where it can start to distort your thinking patterns and can lead to negative self-perception and a perpetual cycle of self-doubt. This is where the physical symptoms become more pronounced, such as chronic headaches, digestive issues, and difficulty sleeping. For me, what happened was this was my next stage of burnout. I was working 15-hour days without breaks, working for the law firm that I'm now supporting in my own business. But at the time, I was working 15-hour days. I was commuting a long way to and from work. I was bringing work home sometimes during the work week and sometimes on the weekends. I had no life outside of the office. I am married. I've been married now for over 28 years, but at the time I felt like my marriage was suffering, and I also felt off. So I know my body was giving me a sign, but I didn't know what the sign was. I went to the doctor, got checked, everything came back fine, but I felt something was off. I also felt that if I did not make a change, that I was running, if you will, towards having a heart attack, and that I would not be around to talk about it because I felt that I was going to die. I truly did, because I was at that stage of my life where I thought, I can't do this anymore. And that's where I took back my time. I ended up stepping away from a full-time position into becoming into entrepreneurship for the very first time, and supporting the team of lawyers and paralegals in the US here in California. But that opened up my time to do other things. And that's when I then went into self development and I became a coach. So that's just a little bit of the story. But I understood that this is where I was. And this was my second round of burnout, except this time it was worse because I was feeling off. I wasn't feeling right. I wasn't sleeping. I was cranky all the time. I was emotional. Every conversation with my husband came from an emotional place. I could not function. And I found myself here, and I knew the only way to do anything was to take back my time. That was the one thing. I jumped without having a safety net, but so I knew that this was the only move. And if you've ever been in that position, backed into a corner, it was my only move that I could do that would actually save me. I actually saved my life. Taking back my time saved my life. So I want to talk about burnout story number 4. Diana, she shared a challenging time in her life where she was on the brink of burnout. During her divorce, her children were facing a lot of struggles, including her daughter's addiction and her son's mental health issues. So she was not only facing, her own personal turmoil around her relationship, but her children also were struggling with addictions and health issues. She had to navigate these immense challenges while also juggling her work and personal responsibilities. So, to cope with this, Diana found solace in focusing on her work and taking college classes. It provided her with a distraction, although she acknowledged that her ability to retain information was compromised because she wasn't taking care of herself. She did say that she was listening to hypnosis sessions and getting regular massages to help manage her stress and maintain some level of well-being. However, she carried on business as usual, going full speed ahead, and she took on immense responsibilities that burnout, just the toll of burnout on her life, it just became so overwhelming. And she said the impact on her mental and physical health cannot be understated. That's what she told me. So she was always on edge. She always felt like that cortisol was flooding her body. So to recover from burnout and prevent its recurrence, she made some intentional changes. Now, of course, these women had to do some self-reflection. This was not overnight, but they eventually came to the conclusion they had their, I would say, rock bottom moment. They were backed into a corner. So she focused on self care that supported her well being, including drinking organic veggie juice and maintaining a consistent workout routine. She learned to identify what she could control because that's the only thing is a lot of the times our stressors come from things we can't control. So when you focus on what you can control and you let go of what's beyond your influence, it helps you. So she did that, and she said by prioritizing her own self worth and happiness, she shifted her mindset and stopped taking things personally. Her experience, she said, it taught her a lot. Um, she recognized that it was important for her to seek advice from trusted sources, and also being discerning about whose advice she followed. Because again, you know, the saying, you don't get financial advice from someone who doesn't know how to manage money or doesn't have money. That's just like an analogy around, like, you want to make sure that who you're looking to for guidance, you can really like, okay, this person knows what they're talking about. This person I feel I can trust, and that I can, listen and get this sage wisdom from them. She also prioritized the quality of her life and her relationships, understanding that self-care and self-preservation are essential. And she also emphasized to me that she realized that taking care of her body and mind and listening to her intuition or gut feelings as a guiding force really was a game changer. So I thought that was really great that she talked about that. So I want to actually take you through just to relax for a moment. I know that I've been talking a lot about um, all of these things, and it might have like brought up a lot of things for you. You may have feelings about things that are going on. So remember I talked about in the very beginning, Shirzad Shamin's positive intelligence. So what I love about Shirzad Shamin, positive intelligence, being introduced to that, was that it's the concept is it's about turning your mind into your best ally. So for you, I know because you all work in very stressful environments that this might be a really good tool for you to use to help you with your mental fitness. So like imagine it as your mental fitness coach that trains you to tackle life's complexities, right? You have a more positive and clear mindset, and you're shifting your thought patterns from self-sabotage to self-support. And others, we can actually be our own worst enemies. He talks about, and I love it. He's the best-selling author, New York Times best-selling author of Positive Intelligence is the book. And he has positive intelligence. I went through his training, which was incredible. And it was 8 weeks of training. And what I loved about it was it just brought you back to an awareness of self. He talks about saboteurs. These are our inner critics, and that we all have, by the way, and they can cloud our thinking and decision making with negativity. They're the voices that amplify our fears and our stresses and our doubts. And again, we all have them, and they can be particularly loud and distracting when you're trying to you're trying to like get through your day. So the sage is your deep well of wisdom within you. It's the part of your mind that approaches challenges with a sense of curiosity, calm, and clear-headed logic. It's the voice of your true self minus the noise of the saboteurs. So the problem we face, though, isn't isolated within us. It's when our saboteurs, for example, are in control, that can shape a very stressful atmosphere. So if you're feeling like I'm really super tired, I can't take time off, and and then you start thinking things about other people, that could be your judging other people and blaming them for your circumstance. When we can take back that control and own our own lives, our own lifestyles, and find a way to use our problems or the things, our challenges, as a gift or opportunity that we can switch into something that's going to support us, that is what about positive intelligence is what the over encompassing idea around positive intelligence is being able to do that, taking a problem and turning it into a gift or opportunity that actually supports you rather than and has you weakening saboteurs, meaning your negativities, and really enhancing and supporting and uplifting your sage wisdom, your the positives of how you think. So I wanted to take you through just a really quick exercise. I want you to close your eyes, just for a moment. And with your eyes shut, I want you to engage your senses by touching two of your fingertips together with enough pressure that you can feel the ridges on each fingertip. So moving them against each other, and so you can feel the pressure of the ridges on each fingertip. Okay, so now, and this is going to be quick because obviously, um, for time's sake, I want to make sure that I get through everything. So next, I want you to focus on your breath, the rise of your chest or belly. So just breathing in and breathing out and focusing on your breath. Now let's turn your focus to the sounds around you. Focus on the farthest sound that you can hear. And now focus on the closest sound that you can hear. Okay, you can open your eyes now. This, as I said, this is quick, but you can do this again on your own. What you've done is just a simple exercise to help calm your senses and bring you back to your present. This is part of like the positive intelligence way of thinking. It's about bringing mindfulness to your senses, which can awaken and refresh your mind. So when you incorporate these exercises into your routine by taking up, things, into your routine, that helps you to again, if you take a moment, like I said, going out and maybe you have a moment where you have 5 minutes and you can have a tea break and you're going to go and drink your tea. I want you to really sit there with your tea. Maybe even close your eyes and smell the aroma of your tea. Feel the warmth of the tea in your hands, in the cup in your hands. Smell it, savor the taste of it. Just bringing yourself back to that moment, that's letting all of the exterior noise go away and bringing you back to you, centering back to you. This is a mindfulness moment just to bring yourself back to you. You get present in the moment. Okay, so now I'm going to provide you with some practical tips and key indicators that can help you recognize when you might be in each of the four stages of burnout. So when you're aware of these stage signs, you can take proactive steps to address them and prioritize you. So the honeymoon phase, for example, during this stage, pay attention to signs of excessive enthusiasm and pushing yourself too hard. So if you are, again, this might not apply to you in the office because you already have set structure, but if you're outside of the office, outside of work, and you are pursuing something personally, a personal goal, it's important that you make sure you pay attention to the signs around this excessive enthusiasm and pushing yourself too hard. And it's very important that you set realistic boundaries and ensure a healthy work life balance. I say balance is, again, I feel work life balance is an example to comes to having, that clarity, right? And that focus and that time doesn't mean that there's a even scale. One day might be more work. One day might be more family, especially if you have on your weekends. Should be all about spending time with your loved ones, enjoying life or your days off, right? So making sure that you incorporate self-care activities into your routine, taking those breaks, essential breaks, engaging in a hobby, maintaining your social connections. Don't disconnect from people. Again, we're better together when we encourage, inspire, uplift, support each other. We're better together as a community. For the onset of stress phase, if you find yourself in this stage, be mindful of signs such as feeling tired, unfulfilled, and experiencing mild burnout symptoms. Make sure you practice self awareness and recognize when you need to ask for help or delegate out tasks, like, or especially if you need to ask for help. Again, do not look at it as a sign of weakness, it's a sign of strength, because then you're saying, listen, I'm human and I just need some help, even if it's just help around answering a question that you feel stuck on. Implementing stress management techniques like deep breathing exercises, time management strategies, setting priorities to prevent burnout from escalating, doing what the exercise that I just introduced you to, which is just bringing yourself back through, getting with your senses, maybe one day you're just, rubbing two fingers, closing your eyes and rubbing two fingers together, and then you're rubbing the fingertips of one hand along the fingertips and along the fingers and palm of your other hand, and just doing that and bringing yourself into awareness. Or maybe one day you're just taking a minute and you're going to just focus on your breathing. Or maybe one day or part of the day you're going to allow yourself to just get more in tune with your hearing. So listening for the furthest sound, listening for the closest sound, whatever that looks like, bring these things into your life so that helps you. This is a tool that I think that you can do daily that can help you with your stress levels. For chronic stress and burnout, look out for emotional exhaustion, detachment, and a sense of being overwhelmed. It may involve you withdrawing from social interactions and feeling cynical. Like for me, when I got to this stage, um, it was a stage just before I actually had my second major burnout. But I was getting to that place where I started feeling that I needed to disappear. I didn't want anyone to know what was going on. So I didn't talk to any of my friends or my family. And I actually had a friend track me down because she said, I haven't heard from you in a while. Is everything okay? That is the beauty of having a really strong community, people in your life who care about you, who will check up on you if they feel that you are pulling away. Make sure you prioritize self-care that promotes physical and emotional well-being, like regular exercise. Sleep is so important. Mindfulness or meditation, seeking the support from friends, family, or professionals. When I talk about sleep, make sure that you're setting yourself up for a good night's rest, meaning turn off your phone. Do not scroll social media just before you go to bed, or start reading posts and things like that, or working on projects just before turning out the lights, because what ends up doing is your brain is still on even though your body is saying, okay, it's time to go to sleep, but you can't go to sleep because your brain is still on. I kind of talk about, I explain it this way when I talk to people. It's like you're feeding your brain. So like you feed your body needs time to digest your food, well, so does your brain. So if you're feeding it something for it to digest, to learn, and you're doing that just before bed, it's going to interrupt your sleep. So be very mindful of that. Now, for crisis and burnout syndrome, if you reach this stage, it may become difficult to function effectively. And again, the impact on your physical and mental health is severe, requiring extended time away from work to recover. So this is where you want to make sure you seek professional help if necessary. Focus on self-care strategies that promote healing and rejuvenation, such as therapy, any type of restorative activity, engaging in hobbies. Art therapy is great. One of my friends plays her guitar throughout the day. Of course, this all depends on what you can do during the workday. Find something that you can do, and prioritize self-compassion and self-care rituals. Give yourself grace. You're not always going to get it right. Extend yourself grace. It's okay if you don't do things the way you hope to every day. We're human. Like, remember that. We're not perfect. We never will be. It's out of sight. There's no such thing as perfect. So if you can just realize that just showing up the best that you can every day is good enough, it's good enough. Okay. So I know that there are extraordinary demands placed on healthcare professionals, especially those of you in your working long hours, and or even when you do overtime. I mean, your dedication, your commitment to your crafts is truly admirable, and I understand the immense pressures you face and the stress that accompanies your role. But it is crucial for you to recognize the human aspect behind your profession, and realize that you need to take care of you in order to be the best at what you do, to be able to show up daily and do the best that you can, because you're in a position where you are a caregiver to others. So I really truly deeply appreciate that what you do is what you're doing is you're really giving of yourselves, and you care so much for your work. And I know that you do, because you wouldn't be doing what you do if you didn't. However, I do want you to extend yourself that grace and understand you might not always get it right, and that you are human, and that there are a lot of tools out there that you can use that can help you with whether you're feeling stressed, anxious. There's a lot of things, but again, that simple step, that simple exercise that I took you through has been a game changer for me, because in the middle of my day, I'll just do that, and I just feel like I come back to the moment, and I can just let everything else go away. And of course, meditation and journaling. I do a whole bunch of things. Self care for me is at the top of my list. It's a priority for me. I prioritize self care. It goes on my calendar first. Everything else is second. As an added bonus, I'm going to provide Kavita with a self-assessment tool that you can use to quickly gauge your level of burnout or stress. It's a brief questionnaire. It can be completed in just a few minutes, I should say, providing you with immediate insights into your well-being. So again, regular use of this tool can help you monitor your stress levels, and teach you to recognize early signs of burnout, enabling timely intervention, so that self-care becomes that thing that helps you. Incorporating micro strategies into your routine can offer a respite even during the busiest days. Again, for example, you can practice a 1-minute breathing exercise between patient visits or while washing your hands. This brief pause to focus on your breath can help reset your stress levels. Simple acts like ensuring you're hydrated or taking a moment to stretch during a break can have a substantial impact on your well-being. Sharing a positive comment with a colleague can also uplift your mood and create a more supportive work environment. Lean on each other. You're there together. You're a family. You might not be all working together in the same department, the same floor, the same area, but your family, because you're all working for the greater goal, which is looking after other people. Looking after, your job is important. So make sure that you lean on each other. Effective communication is very key in a high stress environment. I recommend clear, assertive communication to avoid misunderstandings and reduce unnecessary stress. So, for instance, summarizing key points at the end of a conversation can ensure everyone's on the same page. So, if you're having like a meeting, and you want to make sure everyone understands it all, just summarizing it at the end. Acknowledging and expressing gratitude for your work colleagues' efforts can foster that positive team atmosphere and make your communication more impactful. And peer support, even brief interactions with your peers, can offer significant support. A simple "how are you?" or sharing a lighthearted moment during a shift can make a difference. These interactions not only provide emotional relief, but also strengthen team cohesion, creating a more supportive work environment. Now, given the unpredictable nature of what you do, it's important to set flexible and realistic self-care goals. For instance, if you can't commit to a 30-minute daily exercise routine, consider shorter, more frequent periods of physical activity that fit your schedule. If that's walking for 10 minutes, if that's going outside and walking around your building, but allowing yourself to actually be aware of your environment, looking at all of the things, not just mindlessly walking around your building, but what if there's a garden? What if there are flowers, there are trees? Maybe there's squirrels running around. Maybe there's wildlife that's around. Make sure that you're paying attention, enjoy at that. So, and adapting self-care goals to your current circumstances allow for adjustments as your workload changes is also good too, because like I said, no one size fits all model for self-care. It's what aligns with your lifestyle individually. I encourage you also to utilize professional support services if you have them within your company when they're needed, such as counseling or employee assistance programs. Again, seeking help is a strength. Asking for help is a strength. It's not a weakness. And it's a proactive step towards maintaining your mental and emotional health. Again, when I learned that asking for help was a sign of strength, it really opened up doors for me because I realized I don't have to do it all alone. I don't have to do things by myself. There are other people out there that can help me. It's like that whole, if you've heard of the mastermind, one of the greatest men in the world of, obviously he's no longer with us, Henry Ford, with the car, was so he wasn't educated as well as a lot of the people that were in his this like were in his life, but they were part of what they call the mastermind, right? He surrounded himself with people who knew the things that he may not have known so that he could do what his zone of genius was. And he brought those people in because that was their zone of genius. He recognized, I don't have to do this by myself. I can be successful as long as with the support of others. Again, that's an important thing too. So that's why I say community, support each other. A simple how are you? Hello, how are you doing? How is your day? Getting to know each other, supporting each other's goals, encouraging each other. Someone's tired, going that extra step to be there for each other is going to create that community. That's important. Shouldn't feel like you're isolated and alone. You're not all alone on an island by yourself. You're together. So utilize the community that you have. You are family. Everyone can contribute to a culture of care within the workplace, right? Whether it's through showing appreciation, participating in debriefing sessions, simply lending an ear to someone. They can collectively foster a supportive environment, enhancing the well-being of everyone. And when you recognize the indicators of each stage, which is important, you can take those proactive steps to address burnout and prevent it from escalating, especially if you see it in another person that you work alongside, because maybe they don't see it, they're not recognizing it, but you as an outsider looking in can see it. You can immediately step in and offer that support. Again, remember, self-care is an ongoing process. It's essential to tailor your strategies to your individual needs and circumstances. I just want you to take these tips and self-care strategies and let them serve as reminders to prioritize your well-being in every stage of your journey. Remember, the goal is to create a sustainable and resilient approach to work and life by nurturing your well-being and practicing self-care. So I definitely think we've come to the end of our time together. So I want you to just take a moment to reflect on the key points that we covered. I'll remind you, and then we can open up the floor if there's any questions. And again, if there are any questions from anyone who watches this afterwards, definitely, I know that Kavita will have ways to contact me and let me know so that I can answer them. But we explored 4 stages of burnout, from the honeymoon phase all the way to crisis and burnout syndrome, the signs, the impacts, recovery strategies associated with each stage. We discussed the importance of self-care as a vital tool for preventing burnout and nurturing our overall well-being. I also shared with you some real life stories of women who have experienced burnout and how they coped. I've done several live videos with women around burnout that are on my YouTube channel that you're more than welcome to go back and watch. And I also shared with you another stage of burnout, which is habitual burnout, and how it's so important to recognize our patterns because it can become a pattern. When I first stepped into entrepreneurship, like I said, I did start working for the law firm as my own businesswoman, and I consulted. I supported them, gave them my services to support them. But when I stepped into entrepreneurship as a coach in the beginning, I started repeating patterns that I had been doing in my corporate job. And I had to recognize that, oh, I'm doing this again. And it was becoming habitual. And so when I finally realized that and recognized it, that's when I was able to pull back and start really, implementing steps to really help me overall. Because self-care to me is like vital. To me, it's the lifeblood to our success in life and business. And it's so important that we recognize our patterns so that we can make the changes. Again, I'll make sure to provide Kavita with the link to the self-care planning action worksheet that you can do on your own time, as well as a self-care assessment. And again, if you'd like more personalized approach, then just let Kavita know and she can reach out to me and we can schedule your customized self-care planning assessment, self-care planning action planning session with me. It'll be a 60-minute one-on-one session where we'll talk about, we'll evaluate your stressors, we'll identify personalized self-care goals, create a practical action plan, discuss techniques to enhance well-being, and provide guidance so that you can prevent burnout. So that you can take your self-care journey to the next level. Um, I just want to say that I want to acknowledge your strength and resilience that that you have demonstrated just for showing up and being a part of this today, just for showing up and watching this back. If that's you, you've taken an important step to prioritize your self care and well being. So be proud of that. Be proud of investing in yourself because that's so important. Again, remember you are not alone in this journey. You are a community that can support each other because you understand the challenges. Lean on each other and on your support systems on your self care journey ahead. Small, consistent action steps towards self care make a big difference over time. And so be patient and kind with yourself. Celebrate your small wins, even no matter how small they are. I believe that you've got this. You need to believe that you've got this. So thanks again for your time, your openness, your commitment to self care. I look forward to connecting with you individually and supporting you on your self care journey.